Today on What's Next.
To capture a moment, to grab and hold on to a few precious seconds of a life that can't be contained.
People ask me all the time, what was the number one reason why you won a gold medal? And I tell them all the time, first and foremost, it was passion. It was I loved what I did.
To me, aging successfully isn't necessarily living the longest life, but the happiest and healthiest life.
Hello and welcome into another episode of Growing Boulder's What's Next. And does it seem like time is going faster than ever? That days turn into weeks and weeks into months with just the snap of a finger? Slowing down time, learning to live in the moment, is something that we all begin to at least try to do sooner or later, because that's what life is actually made of, moments. At Growing Boulder, we know that a moment at 70 is filled with as much potential as a moment at 17. Of course, how we spend that moment will change, but its value does not. Our time to do some things and have some abilities might have passed or be passing, but our time to enjoy life, to be grateful for each day, to live in the moment, never passes. For 17 years, Growing Boulder contributor Mike Leonard was a reporter for the Today Show. His love of telling stories grew out of his discovery that looking through the viewfinder of a camera and focusing on moments he might not even be aware of otherwise was his way of slowing down time and appreciating life's greatest blessings. Here's Mike.
It's clear that we can't make more time, but we certainly can make more of our time. A realization that for some reason has resided in my soul for as long as I can remember.
This is how it began, on a sidewalk in Hubbard Woods, Illinois. That's me in the front on the right, making my first appearance in a home movie. The time was right. America in the 1950s was full of kids and first-time filmmakers like my dad and mom. Regular folk who now had access to a new wave of inexpensive, easy-to-operate 8mm movie cameras. No sound, no experience necessary. Obviously. Each roll of film recorded about 3.5 minutes of action. If action translates to walking toward the camera while smiling. That was the go-to on-camera move of the era, for the simple reason that most movie camera-toting people of that era were totally in the dark, often very dark, when it came down to the question of what to shoot and how to shoot it. Which is too bad, because my dad and mom, and so many others like them, had noble intentions. They were trying to do what humans have always tried to do, either with photography, or painting, or sculpture, or charcoal drawings on a cave wall, and that is, to capture a moment, to grab and hold on to a few precious seconds of a life that can't be contained. It's a never-ending task, and after a while, most people grow weary of the effort, reaching for the movie camera on fewer and fewer occasions. That's what happened in our house. The gaps in our home movie timeline growing bigger and bigger, until the family projector finally went dark for good sometime before my 10th birthday. A decade passed. Then, in August of 1969, I bought a movie camera. The new and improved Super 8 model, with a better lens, but still no sound. Still only 3.5 minutes of film per roll. Kathy and I were engaged to be married the following June, after my final year of college, my last season as a college hockey player. The Vietnam War was dragging on, while society was moving on, shedding traditions and customs in a style and manner never before seen in America. Life was changing rapidly, and I was in the middle of it all, focusing my camera on moments big and small, fighting my battle with time, and learning along the way that the payoff didn't come when the film was developed. It was the act of filming that seemed to make life slow down. By peering through a viewfinder for a better angle of a quiet moment. By climbing onto the roof of our house for a more dramatic view of a simple stroll down the sidewalk. By framing even the most ordinary aspects of life in ways to be noted and remembered. Once that realization kicked in, I knew that my grip on the movie camera would never loosen, and that my only chance of making any kind of impact in life was tied to those bits and pieces of life that tie all of us together.
We can't make more time. We can make more of our time. Important words from Mike Leonard, one of the greatest storytellers of all time. He still makes home movies, mostly about his grandkids, that he shares with family and friends on social media. In fact, it was a home movie that landed Mike his first job in television more than 50 years ago when I first met him. With zero broadcast experience, and in lieu of a resume tape, he somehow talked the news director in Phoenix into allowing him to project one of his home movies onto a blank wall in his office. A bold move by Mike, and maybe an even bolder move by the news director to take a chance on a kid with an 8mm camera and away with words. In a business that celebrates the sensational, Mike Leonard elevates the ordinary. As he says, the bits and pieces of our lives that we all share. The magic and memorable moments that we all have access to if only we're able to slow down and notice. Of course, you don't have to record them to enjoy them, but if you want to, how much easier is it today to capture those moments than it was for our parents? You don't need a camera that has only 3 minutes of film that has to be set off to be developed, that then has to be cut and spliced to make edits before threading it onto a projector and displaying it on a wall without sound to be seen only by those in the room. In today's digital world, you can shoot, edit, add music, and share those magic moments with anyone, anywhere, almost instantaneously with nothing more than your phone. Why not try to slow down time in your life by turning everyday activities into magic moments? If you're looking for more inspiration to slow down and appreciate the moment, be sure to head to watch.growingbolder.com to see our conversation with Carl Honore. He's a best-selling author and the father of the slow movement, who has tips on how we can all learn to slow down from the hustle of everyday life to live in the present.
People ask me all the time, what was the number one reason why you won a gold medal? And I tell them all the time, first and foremost, it was passion. It was I loved what I did.
Welcome back inside Growing Boulder's What's Next. Of course, the vast majority of the stories that we tell are on ordinary people living extraordinary lives. But on occasion, we do bring you insight from well-known celebrities and major thought leaders. Growing Boulder is proud to call Rowdy Gaines not just one of our contributors, but also a good friend. Rowdy is a 3-time Olympic gold medalist, a legendary swimmer who set 7 world records and went on to become the voice of swimming for NBC and the Olympics. I recently chatted with Rowdy on his 65th birthday to find out what he thinks about turning Medicare age and the lessons that he's learned along the way.
You know, it's funny because I've been talking about this whole Medicare thing, about signing up for it. How do I do it? I can't imagine me saying the word Medicare. Just saying the word drives me crazy. But, you know, I'm in the twilight of my life. I'm on the other side, Mark. And, you know, fortunately, I have people like you and so many others that are my elders and people I look to, my mentors, that have paved the way. And I really feel good about that side of things. You know, when I talk to you about swimming, for example, and you tell me you swim and you're still going strong, and that inspires me. So, and I know so many people that you've had on Growing Boulder over the years have been inspirational to me as well. So, you know, I feel pretty good right now. I got some aches and pains, no doubt about it, dude. But I'm hanging in there, you know.
Since you now have the wisdom of a 65-year-old man, share with us, if you will, Rowdy, you know, what's the big picture? What's the big takeaway? What's the key to living a life that you can be proud of?
You know, that's a tough question, Mark. But I would tell you, I feel the same way as I did during my swimming career. If you live your life consistently, I think you'll be okay. Don't expect perfection. And I think for me, people ask me all the time, what was the number one reason why you won a gold medal? And I tell them all the time, first and foremost, it was passion. It was I loved what I did. But the second thing, which goes along with that, is the consistent passion. It wasn't all the time. Dude, we know how it feels sometimes to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and go to practice. But I think that consistent passion was what really got me through each day. And again, I was never perfect, but I think my consistency paid off. So I hope that I'll be able to live my life in the same way, with a consistent passion for living life at the fullest.
You can watch my entire conversation with Rowdy at watch.growingboulder.com, where we talk about his current greatest passion, being a grandfather, and his new Olympic record, broadcasting his 10th Olympic Games in Paris, his 9th alongside his broadcast partner, Dan Hicks. You know, it's always a treat to talk with Rowdy, who is the definition of humility despite his Hall of Fame successes. Rowdy actually worked for Growing Boulder at the National Senior Games, and I can tell you he was sincere when he said that he's inspired by weekend warriors that stay active, that push through aches and pains, and bounce back from the inevitable setbacks. If an Olympic icon can be inspired by the passion and determination of ordinary people, so can we all. And don't just find someone whose example motivates you to keep on keeping on. Be an example for others by trying new things and never giving up. As Rowdy said, consistency trumps perfection every time. All right, before we go to break, remember that distant melody and the anticipation of it getting ever closer? The ice cream truck making its way through the neighborhood as you wait in front of your house with a couple of quarters in your fist, wondering, should I get the ice cream sandwich or the fudge sickle? Nobody has delighted kids for more years than Alan Gantz, the Guinness World Record holder for the longest career as an ice cream distributor. Our Boulder Trivia question of the week: how many years did it take Gantz to become the king of cool, the longest running ice cream man in the world? The answer when we return. Welcome back to What's Next. And before the break, we asked, how many years did Alan Gantz drive his ice cream truck? The answer, a world record-setting 67 years. And he tells us his go-to song, the one that everybody in town knew, is Yankee Doodle. We interviewed Alan and his family about his remarkable career, bringing joy to children every day in Peabody, Massachusetts. You can watch that story right now on watch.growingboulder.com. Hanging out with younger people and having a passion for bringing joy to their lives helped Alan think differently and to age successfully. But what does it mean to age successfully? Because we all have different definitions of success. Daniel Levitin is a neuroscientist. He's a psychologist and the best-selling author of the book Successful Aging. So we figured, why not ask him? Bill Schaefer went one-on-one with Levitin to learn what he believes it means to age successfully and the keys to help us all do it.
But to me, aging successfully isn't necessarily living the longest life, but the happiest and healthiest life. So I was just at a conference where they are doing research at a cellular level and at a chemical level where they think they can push out the lifespan to 200 years within the next 25 years. And they didn't really look at anything like quality of life. And so, everybody has to make their own choice, how they would evaluate the pluses and minuses. But I don't think I want to live to be 200 if I'm going to spend the last 100 years sitting in a chair, catatonic and drooling on myself, completely unaware. So I think of our lifespan, whatever it is that we get, whether it's 80 or 100 or 200 years, as comprising a health span and a disease span. And I think what successful aging to me is, whatever that lifespan is, you minimize the disease span at the end, you maximize the length of time that you're in the health span.
Give us 3 things that we could do now to start our journey towards successful aging.
Sure. One of them is don't retire. That, for a number of reasons that I go into in the book and have in longer form interviews, is really the death of health, brain and bodily health for most people. Now, if you do have to retire, you should retire from something to something else. Again, it could be volunteerism. It doesn't really matter. But having a sense of purpose, having to be at a certain place at a certain time, having to interact with other people, what you and I are doing right now, having a conversation gets to the number 2 piece of advice, which is keep meeting new people. Having a conversation is the most complex cognitive operation for the brain that we know of. It's more complicated than brain surgery. I can tell you that because I teach brain surgeons as part of my teaching. That's not that complicated. It's basically a bunch of plumbing. And then the third piece is practice gratitude. If you're happy with what you have and not focused on what you lack, you'll be happy.
So much great stuff here. I've heard countless experts talk about the importance of socializing as we age, but I got to tell you, that's the first time I've heard a neuroscientist explain that part of the reason is because conversation is the most complex cognitive operation for the brain that we know of, more complicated than brain surgery. So remember Levitin's 3 keys to successful aging: find purpose, keep socializing, and practice gratitude. At Growing Bolder, we've told countless stories of individuals who would check those boxes for successful aging. But one of my favorites is 80-year-old Joe Johnson, who I talk about often. Joe and his wife Janet are retired school teachers who live on a fixed income. But that doesn't stop them from driving around the country and competing in pole vaulting events. In fact, they built a pole vaulting room onto their house that they open up to anyone of any age that wants to learn how to pole vault for free. Joe has been called the Mother Teresa of pole vaulting, and he told us, quote, "I'm a filthy rich man, but I ain't got much money. I have wonderful things in my life that I deeply appreciate, and that makes me rich." We've done multiple stories on Joe, and you can watch and be inspired by them all at watch.growingbolder.com. Joe is definitely smashing a few stereotypes by pursuing his passion for pole vaulting into his 80s, and that's another key to successful aging. Never stop doing what you love, or at least some version of it as you age, even if it's going to heavy metal concerts and getting up front into the mosh pit. In our bold social clip of the week, we do a little headbanging. If you're looking for active centenarians who are unhappy hermits, stop. There are none. A life of isolation is not a pathway to a healthy 100. All of the active centenarians that we've interviewed over the past 15 years not only thrive on the stimulation of social interaction, they require it. Most talk to or communicate with a friend or family member daily, which means they hang out with younger people because everyone is younger when you're a centenarian. When you hang out with younger people, you see yourself as younger. That leads to feeling younger and living longer. Welcome back to Growing Boulder's What's Next. Are you following us on Facebook? If not, you should join in. Growing Boulder is more than media. It's a movement of men and women of all ages dedicated to living life to the fullest, to living with passion and purpose. We've created a community more than 1 million strong on Facebook, people just like you who are leaning into life and Growing Bolder, sharing their own experiences and learning from one another. And each week we ask our followers the Your Take question of the week. This time we ask, what activity do you enjoy that makes time seem to slow down? Dory shared this photo with her drum set and says, "I'm not a pro, but I love to rock out. Taught myself how to play at age 59. Diane says, listening to birds. Maria enjoys playing golf, and Robert enjoys surfing. For Faith, Mary, Karen, Raquel, and so many others, it's some form of art or painting. You know, there's no question that we all have to work on shutting off the autopilot that wants to run our lives. We have to force ourselves to step away from our never-ending to-do list and simply think. Thinking, or making an effort to not think, as in meditation, is the ultimate time-slowing activity. I'm trying to get back into meditating after decades, but what I have been able to do on almost a daily basis is to walk outside after dinner, usually when I'm feeding the 2 or 3 feral cats that have adopted us, and sitting in the driveway, listening to the birds, watching the wind bend the trees, listening to dogs barking blocks away, and even for the sound of the ice cream man. For all of us, what's next has to be a little more of right now. If we're always racing to the future, time races with us. We'll see you next time.